Pain is not our enemy. It is not here to punish. It is here to awaken. In this life, we are not shaped by comfort. We are carved by the sharp chisels of suffering. Just like a sculptor strikes a raw stone again and again until the divine form emerges, pain chips away at all that is superficial, until only what is essential remains. When you suffer, something within you breaks. But do not fear the breaking, because only what is false breaks. What is real will remain. In our modern world, we are obsessed with avoiding discomfort. Remember, if the seed is not crushed by the soil, there is no sprouting. If the bud doesn't split, there is no blooming. Likewise, if the heart does not ache, how will passion arise? It is in the depth of pain that the fire of longing is born, and this longing, whether it is for truth, for creation, for love, or for God, is the fuel of passion. Pain purifies, passion ignites. Together, they transform a human being from a seeker of comfort into a seeker of truth, beauty, and boundless life. Pain is not punishment. We are conditioned to believe that if we are in pain, something has gone wrong, that life has become unfair, or that we are being punished for something we did. But pain is not a verdict. It is a signal, an invitation to turn inward, to look deeper. When the body is hurt, it cries out. That pain tells you something needs attention. The same is true for the inner dimension of your life. When something inside begins to ache, it is life's way of drawing your attention to what truly matters. Pain is not a mistake. It is part of the intelligence of life. A gentle nudge at times, a fierce push at others. Designed not to harm, but to redirect. To shake you awake from the illusion that you are in control, that things must go your way, that you are complete as you are. Pain humbles you. It dissolves pride, shatters masks, and forces authenticity. It doesn't ask for your permission. It simply arrives. Not as a curse, but as a teacher. Not to close you down, but to open you up to layers of being you didn't know existed. And if you do not resist it, if you stop fighting and simply observe, pain becomes a doorway into depth, into compassion, into clarity, into passion. You were not born to glide through life untouched. You were born to feel, to break, to rise, and to burn bright. Pain is part of that alchemy, not a punishment, but a passage. Suffering awakens awareness. As long as life moves smoothly, we often drift through it half asleep. Days pass, conversations blur. Choices are made without presence, unmade without presence. Comfort breeds a kind of forgetfulness. We forget the fragility of life. We forget the mystery of our own existence. We forget to look inward. But suffering shakes us. It jolts us awake. Like cold water splashed on a sleeping face, it cuts through the fog of habit and illusion. Suddenly, you can no longer ignore what you've been avoiding. The noise of the world fades and the inner voice grows louder. When everything seems fine, there is little urge to ask deeper questions. But when the ground trembles beneath your feet, you begin to ask, what is this all for? Who am I really? Why does this hurt so much? These questions are not intellectual. They rise from your bones, from the raw places where life is no longer theoretical. Suffering forces you into presence. In those moments of deep hurt or confusion, you are no longer lost in the past or future. You are here, fully, painfully, vividly here. And in that state of absolute presence, something opens. A certain clarity begins to take root. You start seeing people differently. You begin to notice the things you took for granted. The laughter of a child, the silence between words, the touch of the wind, these become sacred again. Suffering doesn't give you answers, but it deepens the question. It brings you face to face with yourself. And in that meeting, awareness is born not from books or teachings, but from the burning truth of your own experience. Comfort doesn't create depth. Comfort is pleasant. It soothes the body, calms the nerves, and gives a sense of safety. But if you live there too long, it becomes a cushion that numbs your soul. But slowly, without even noticing, you stop stretching, you stop seeking, you stop growing. The tree doesn't grow tall because the weather is kind. It grows because the winds test its roots. The diamond does not shine because it is pampered. It shines because it has been pressed and cut. In the same way, a human being does not evolve in ease. You may become more efficient, more comfortable, more entertained, but you do not become deeper. Depth comes from being broken open, from being lost and daring to find your way, from failing and still standing up, from crying and yet continuing to love. Comfort creates repetition. It creates habit. And habit is a slow death of curiosity. You settle. You accept the surface of life. But discomfort stirs something primal in you. It lights a spark. It whispers, there's more than this. It is only when you are shaken, When life puts you to the test, that you start to ask, who am I beyond all this? Discomfort pushes you beyond your known limits, beyond your roles, beyond your own ideas of who you should be. It forces you to meet the unfamiliar within yourself. You cannot touch the vastness of your being by staying within the boundaries of comfort. If you want to know depth, you must be willing to step into the unknown, even if it trembles, even if it aches, because that's where life begins to move from survival to sacred. Pain reveals what is real. Much of what we carry, our identities, our stories, our opinions, our pride, is like a mask worn too long. We begin to mistake it for our face. We live surrounded by layers, thinking they are us. But when pain enters, it has no regard for these masks. It does not bow to our titles or our image. It goes straight to the core. What breaks in suffering is not your essence. It is everything that is not essential. The false things, attachments that were never real, beliefs that never served you, relationships built on illusion. These begin to crack and fall away. And in that breaking, something raw, something honest begins to emerge. Pain strips you of pretense. When you're hurting, there is no room to pretend. You cannot fake a smile or decorate your words. You become real, sometimes messy, sometimes fragile, but always true. In that truth, there is power. And he's like a regular, it's like a fire that consumes the innocent choice and sincerity. He's become gold when the glow's been burned away. Pain is like a fire that consumes the innocent. And though the burning is intense, what remains is pure. What remains is you. Not the version you show the world, but the you that existed before the world told you who to be. So if something breaks in the presence of pain, let it. Because what is real will not be destroyed. And only what is borrowed, built, or imagined will fall. And when it does, you'll be left with something priceless. Your bare, beating truth that transformation requires friction. Nothing refines itself in isolation. Nothing evolves by remaining untouched. The process of becoming is never smooth. It is wild, it is fierce, and it is often uncomfortable. A river cuts through rock not with ease, but with relentless flow. The blade becomes sharp not by resting, but by grinding in stone. Friction is life's way of awakening hidden strength. When everything aligns perfectly, there's no need to adapt. No reason to dig deeper. But when life rubs against you, when challenges scrape against your certainty, something powerful starts to stir. That friction, be it between you and the world, or between parts of your own being, begins the process of transformation. The gold does not shine until it has passed through fire. The seed does not bloom until it breaks through the shell. And the human spirit does not awaken until it has been touched by the edge of struggle. We long for ease, but it is the resistance, the tension, the weight that shapes us. Friction is not the enemy. It is a sacred pressure applied by life itself to push us beyond the surface, to challenge our assumptions, to test our willingness, to stretch the walls of our comfort until they become windows to a wider sky. Through friction, the false is rubbed away. The rough edges of ego are worn down. The softness of compassion, patience, and purpose begins to emerge, not by theory, but by experience. You cannot glide into transformation. You must be willing to pass through the grind, to meet resistance not with fear, but with a quiet yes. Because every time life presses against you, it is not trying to break you. It is trying to carve you into something more precise, more powerful, more real. That passion is born from longing. Not the kind of longing that comes and goes like a passing mood, but a deep ache that settles in the chest and refuses to leave. This longing often begins in the quiet after a storm, in the space left behind by pain, loss, or disillusionment. When something is taken from you, when life no longer fits into the neat boxes you built for it, that's when the longing awakens. It is not something you choose. It is something that claims you. This longing is not for a personing or a destination. It is for something greater, something you may not even be able to name. It is the call of your own potential, echoing from a place you have not yet reached. It is the cry of your soul to touch something beyond the surface, to live with intensity, to love without restraint, to create from the center of your being. Pain cracks the shell of numbness, and from within, longing emerges. And once it is born, it begins to burn. That fire is what we call passion. Passion is not loud by nature. It can be quiet like a prayer or still like a flame, but it never goes out. It gives color to your actions, depth to your words, and meaning to your days. You may not understand where it leads, but you know you must follow it, because once longing has entered your heart, anything less feels empty. The greatest works of art, The most powerful movements, the most transformative lives, all begin with a moment of longing.
Not comfort, not certainty, but a raw, aching desire for something more.
So when that ache arises within you, don't rush to fix it. Don't cover it up. Sit with it. Listen to it. It is not weakness. It is the seed of your passion. Let it burn. Let it guide. Let it become the force that reshapes your life. Pain breaks open the heart, not gently, not politely. It does not knock at the door. It bursts in. It tears apart the walls we so carefully build around our emotions, our dreams, and our vulnerabilities. And in the moment, it feels like destruction. It feels like something precious is being lost. But what is actually lost is the armor. We spend so much of life learning how to protect ourselves. We toughen up. We smile when we don't feel like it. We hold back tears because we are told that strength means being unshaken. We build emotional fortresses, not realizing that those very walls are what separate us from real connection, from real depth. Then pain comes, and suddenly, everything we've been holding together starts to unravel. The heart, once guarded, begins to tremble. How I ran. And in that trembling, something beautiful happens. We feel fully, uncontrollably, deeply. It is not weakness to be broken open. It is a return to the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. When the heart is broken open, compassion flows, empathy deepens, creativity surges. Oh, we see others differently, not as strangers, but as fellow travelers carrying unseen wounds. We begin to speak from a more honest place, and we begin to listen, not just to words, but to the silence beneath them. A closed heart can be efficient. It can be smart, but it cannot love. It cannot create. Smart, but it cannot love. It cannot create. It cannot burn with passion. Only a heart that has been broken, cracked wide enough for light to pour in can truly live. And so, pain doesn't just wound the heart, it opens it. And from that opening comes everything we long for. Connection, expression, purpose. Not despite the pain, but because of it. Suffering is the seed of purpose. When everything in life feels easy, we rarely stop to ask why we are here. We go through the motions, busy with the mechanics of living, chasing success, managing relationships, ticking boxes. But when suffering enters, it interrupts the rhythm. It forces a pause. It demands that we confront questions we've long ignored. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What does any of this mean? What am I truly meant for? These are not small questions. They are the beginning of purpose. Suffering tears away the noise. It creates a silence in which deeper truths begin to speak. And in that silence, a subtle knowing begins to grow. Not always in the form of answers, but as a quiet direction, a pull, a sense of what truly matters. The most purposeful people are not those who have avoided pain, but those who have been through it, sat with it, and allowed it to reshape them. They are the ones who turn their wounds into wisdom, their grief into service, their emptiness into creativity. They didn't choose their suffering, but they chose what to do with it. When you suffer, you come face to face with your raw self without the masses. And in that encounter, you discover what you care about, what you can no longer ignore, and what you must give to the world before your time here is done. Purpose is not always grand or loud. Sometimes it's as simple as being fully present with another human being. Sometimes it's creating beauty from sorrow. Sometimes it's giving your pain a voice so others feel less alone. Suffering plants the seed. Purpose is the flower that blooms from it. Slowly, patiently, and only if we are willing to water it with awareness. Conscious pain leads to liberation. Pain by itself does not awaken. It is not the suffering alone that transforms. It is how you sit with it, how you meet it, how you listen to it. Most people react to pain with resistance. It festers in the dark corners of the mind and becomes suffering without end. But when pain is met with awareness, when you stop running, stop covering, and simply be with it, something begins to shift. Suddenly, the pain becomes a teacher. It shows you where you are holding on. It shows you what you have not yet healed. It reveals the attachments that create your suffering and the illusions you've mistaken for truth. Pain in this light is not an enemy. It becomes a mirror. To be with pain consciously is to allow it to move through you without identifying with it. You are not the pain. You are the space in which it is felt. And when that space is filled with awareness, the pain can complete its journey. It can rise, peak, and fall away. This is where liberation begins, not in escaping pain, but in understanding it. Not in becoming invulnerable, but in becoming inwardly free, no matter what arises. There is great strength in one who can sit in the fire of their own suffering without flinching, without blaming, without collapsing. That stillness in the midst of burning is not passive. It is power. It is power. It is the power to transform pain into wisdom, grief into compassion, and fear into peace. When you stop fearing pain, it loses its grip on you. And in that freedom, you begin to live, not carefully, not fearfully, but openly. Pain that has been seen, understood, and honored with awareness becomes no longer a prison, but a path. And that path leads not to more suffering, but to the vast, quiet joy of inner liberation. Passion is the fire of life. Without it, life is merely a series of tasks, obligations, and routines. It becomes a mechanical existence, moving from one moment to the next without depth or meaning. But when passion ignites within you, everything changes. Suddenly, the mundane becomes sacred. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. Fatha, you see the world not as a place of obligation, but as a canvas waiting for you to paint your purpose on it. Passion is not just an emotion. It is the life force that propels you forward, that pushes you to create, to express, to connect, to transform. It is the very fuel of your soul, the energy that burns away all the excess and reveals your true calling. It is the thing that makes you wake up in the morning with excitement, with urgency, with a desire to dive deeply into life. It is what turns every effort into an act of love, every challenge into an opportunity, and every victory into a stepping stone to something greater. But passion does not arrive in comfort. It does not bloom from ease. It comes when you are fully alive, when you've felt both the pain of loss and the joy of love, when you've struggled and fallen, but also when you've risen again. Passion is born from the crucible of life, where suffering and joy meet, where fire and water dance together. It's the result of a life fully lived, not a life of avoidance. When pain sparks passion, something extraordinary happens. The fire of your longing burns brighter than the ashes of your past, and you begin to move toward what truly calls you, regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the risks. Passion is fearless. It does not wait for permission. It doesn't need to know the end of the story before starting the journey. It knows only one thing, that this moment is precious, and it must be lived with full intensity, with full heart. Passion is a force that brings your dreams to life, that makes your heart race and your spirit soar. That's what makes you live on purpose, not by accident. And when passion leads the way, even the hardest paths become a dance. And the deepest challenges become the very things that carve you into a more powerful, more expansive version of yourself. This fire is yours. It is always within you, waiting for the moment when you stop resisting, when you stop playing small. And once it is lit, it will never go out. It will burn eternally, guiding you toward everything you were meant to create, to give, to become. And so remember this, life is not about avoiding the storms or seeking constant comfort. It is about learning to dance in the rain, to embrace the pain, and to allow it to awaken something far greater within you. Pain, suffering, longing, they are not obstacles, but invitations to live more fully, more deeply. They are the gateways to passion, to purpose, to the fire that burns at the core of your existence. Do not run from the challenges that life presents. Instead, welcome them as the sacred teachers they are. Let them break you open. Let them show you who you truly are. And let them ignite the passion that lies dormant within. Because it is only through the fire of your own experience, your own transformation, that you will step into the fullness of your being. Embrace the journey. Embrace the pain. Embrace the passion. And in doing so, you will discover that life, in all its ups and downs, is a beautiful and endless adventure.